to the Grieving Sisters. I'm Jessica.
I'm Elizabeth.
And oh man, we've been just banging out these episodes like crazy. We're already up to episode 8. And I just feel like there's just so much to talk about with grief.
Yeah.
This episode is actually like more centered around wills, estates, power of attorney, like some legal stuff. Disclaimer. We are not the professionals.
We are not.
We are telling you our experiences, and maybe it just might resonate with you and be like, oh, let me jump on that. Let me take care of this. Let me do it this way.
We are two people who were thrown
Literally
into this with absolutely no experience, knowledge, anything.
You're never ready for this.
Both of our younger siblings died suddenly.
Yes.
And without plans, because you don't plan when you're in your 20s and 30s.
No.
And unfortunately, you have to.
Yeah.
You really have to, because it's not like their death was a burden on us.
Right.
It's just that you don't, for me, if someone's going to mourn me, I don't want them to have to deal with all this other stuff.
Correct.
And you know that our siblings would have been like, oh my God, we don't want you to deal with any of that.
This. Yeah.
But unfortunately, that is the reality, and the importance of addressing legal matters during grief. I mean, it's a difficult but necessary process.
Even for me, it's not that I'm not dreading it. It's not the first thing on my priority list. I have to be honest. It's not like the first thing that I'm like, oh my God. My girlfriend did give me, one of my best friends, she gave me a lawyer over in Lyndhurst that can write up a will and kind of get the estates in order and just like give everything to our daughter. But it's not that I haven't called or my husband hasn't called. I'm just kind of like, I need to be in that space to do that. And I don't think there's ever a right time to do that.
There's not. But you scare the crap out of people when you start talking about this.
Yes, because then they think you're jinxing or you're putting
they're just like, stop talking like that. And I'm like, but
we're all gonna go.
But I need to tell somebody what my plans are, and I can't tell my mom,
right?
Because she's grieving her daughter.
Correct.
So I can't be like, hey, let's talk about when I die, just in case I go before you. That would be her worst nightmare. You know what I mean?
No, please.
So it's like, I remember texting my ex-husband being like, hey, these are my plans for the kids. These are my plans for me. These are my plans for this.
Put it in writing.
I did.
So, okay, good. So, I mean, guys, honestly, you go to your local attorney, you find out through families and friends, or post it on Facebook and say, who do you recommend? Or you can go to LegalZoom. LegalZoom, you could sponsor us for this, that I'm shouting you out. Let's name drop on that one. But, all jokes aside, they also have that thing that you can kind of click off. But me personally, I'd rather speak to somebody.
There are so many resources online, to your point. You know, I mean, you can there's free legal advice. I'm telling you, I know I talk about TikTok so much, but you the amount of
TikTok,
resources.
Maybe you can sponsor us.
TikTok.
Mental health.
There is so many resources out there where even if you're trying to find a grief counselor or trying to find some sort of legal help. Yeah. Listen, these women who are divorce custody battles on TikTok, you have to see how they rally together. Hey, I think if you do things this way or you help this way, or, different states, or, hey, does anybody know a family lawyer here?
And that's another thing. A lot of different states are you have to be
very different.
Yeah. New Jersey is a hot mess, as we always are. I don't care. Jersey bred for life. I don't care.
We're from North Bergen. We've been in the news.
I don't know where you've been from, but I'm from North Bergen, yo.
We've made it. We've made it to TMZ this week.
Wait, how about? Yes, we did. And Z100. Maybe you can sponsor us too.
Listen.
We're just throwing names around, but with all that being said, we're joking around, but this is really serious, and even for our parents, right? So for my dad, we can talk about power of attorney really fast. I had no idea. I'm like, what's a power of attorney? So my dad lost his vision, and thank God for the secretary at my school, that I was working. She did the same for her parents. So she was like, look, I'm a notary. I can do all your notarization. I'm not going to charge you, because notary, they're not supposed to charge you. The UPS store too, they do notary. they're all like have notary, or like if you need the 2 witnesses, they do that too. And there is,
and your local bank has,
but they charge, and they're not supposed to charge, believe it or not. So that's some information that I found out. But then there's also mobile notary. You know, I have a friend that actually does mobile notary. You know, hustle some more.
A lot of real estate agent groups have notary mobile there. So I remember being in Compass in Hoboken, needing something notarized. Like I was able to find somebody within my office
real quick. And then so she did power of attorney, and I was just like, well, what is a power of attorney? She was like, no, you're gonna do durable power of attorney, because if he fails ill, she was like, listen, he lost his vision. You already know. And I said, yes, I know that it's just all going to come down to, you know, eventually he's going to pass, right? Because he starts schlepping and he's just not, you know, he's dragging his feet.
You can see the decline.
Yeah. They, you know, they weren't working him out, like, and he can't see. So like, he's nervous. So like, he doesn't want to break anything. So anyway, with all that being said, you know, she was able to do that. But did you know that like, you have to update that like every year.
I didn't realize.
So I didn't know that you have to update that. I thought like once you did it, like that's it. They were like, but not that the power of attorney, the durable power of attorney itself. The notarization, their stuff expires.
Oh, that's right.
So when they expire, your whole thing expires. So I was trying to get some information for my dad's pension. Now, that's a whole other story for another day. So I was trying to because what was happening is that where he was staying, it was like the assisted living, and then whatever, they needed paperwork, but I wasn't on any of his paperwork. I said, well, I faxed you guys the power of attorney years ago. Why don't you have that on record? And they were just like, no, we need you to send it again. So I sent it again. They were like, no, this date. No, this is wrong. And then just kept popping it back, and they wanted me to fax. And I go, dude, it's 2025. Oh, what do you mean fax? Like, who still has a fax anymore? Like, you know what I mean?
North Carolina, they're mailing everything.
Right, snail mail. So, and no, and that was it. Then they were like, oh no, we want you to mail it out. And I go, oh, okay, cool. Come find out they were merging or whatever, changing companies, which I knew something was going on. But anyway,
also, there's different departments that deals with different stuff.
Yes.
So definitely make several copies.
Oh, yeah.
Death certificates. When you get a death certificate, when you order, another thing that I never thought we'd have to order 5 or learn about.
You got to order 5.
I ordered a dozen.
You have to. Well, she was younger, so you have to. So for my dad, I had to do 5. Like one for Medicaid, Medicare, one for his pension, one for, I forget, there was like something else that I needed it for, but they said to order 5.
The funeral home was like, the funeral home was like, how many death certificates do you want?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want any.
Yeah. Like, this is not
like,
real.
What? Like, I don't want one.
No.
And he was like, well, I'm going to show you one. You have to proofread a death certificate.
Yes, and you have to make sure that their name is spelled right, where they passed, like even like their cause of death.
I was about to say that. Multiple blunt force trauma.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
Like, it is, you have to be prepared to read something like that. Yeah. And then as you're reading something like that, funeral home director will say, so how many of those you want? And you're like, right. I want to throw up.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, how many do you suggest? And he had said, at least 10.
That's a lot. That's excessive.
Just so
but she's young. She was young, and she had so many different areas.
So because the Navy needed one.
Right.
So many places want original
copies. Yep.
So it's good to have a bunch of original copies.
And to think that by the way, birth certificates, death certificates are public. They're public information. Why do you need that from me? Like, use your big wigs.
And you'll be so surprised the amount of people who say they don't receive it.
Oh, yeah.
Or you have to fax it to this.
Certified mail.
I remember for my sister's car. Her car was totaled. And the people who handle a total loss in the car didn't realize that she had passed.
Oh, so they were just like, oh, it's just a total loss.
So they're trying to mail her a check.
Oh, and you can't.
And my mom is like, yeah, why would you do that? Like, they didn't know that she didn't survive the crash. So it's like there's two different people. There's loss of life and there's total loss of the vehicle.
I didn't know
and
that.
I didn't know if it was just this particular car insurance company or if it was the way it goes. But it's like, I didn't even think about that. You think that they just know what's going on, and then you have to do a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
So that's another thing when it comes to, like, you need to have, power of attorney, healthcare directives.
So even the healthcare, I have
car insurance.
Like, that.
You have to have all your beneficiaries. They had a timeshare. Yeah. We don't know if the timeshare had a beneficiary. You have to make sure you go through all of your stuff.
Yes.
And make sure that you have beneficiaries. I remember when I started a new job this past year.
Sure.
I signed up for a 401k. And I had never put a beneficiary.
Right. My dad didn't put me as a beneficiary.
But I had none.
Pension.
And then I got these emails that was like, you need to put someone down. And I was like, oh my goodness, what would have happened if something would have happened to me?
Yeah.
You know, there's a year's salary that's waiting there for them, and they wouldn't even have access to it.
Yeah, not cool. So just to even bring up about Medicaid and Medicare, like, I'm very thankful for them, although they are the biggest pains I've ever been through. They were very helpful for my dad and everything like that. But I will tell you, so he was getting a little bit extra money from pension. Mm-hmm. And what happened is that because he was getting that extra money, they're like, well, you need to put that in an irrevocable trust fund. So they do have irrevocable trust fund that you can put money into the account that it pays towards your funeral. So, like, you can actually be paying off your funeral however you want to go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's like a savings account, and it builds interest and everything like that. Obviously, like, my dad's, when he was diagnosed from March to November, like, that's all we had. So, with that being said, I did that, I opened that, and Medicaid won't pay for your funeral. So if you have all that extra money coming in. Now, if you have no income coming in, that's it. Like, you were receiving benefits, you were receiving Medicare, they do pay for, and please don't quote me, I don't know where you are in the States, but don't quote me, but in my case, they would have paid for my dad because he was on Medicare and Medicaid. But he had the pension coming in. If he was just having Social Security come in, it would have been that. But because of that pension, really, and it didn't.
So that's another thing. Understanding like state programs with your pension programs, with things like that. Also choosing the right executor of your estate.
So you got to definitely talk about that. I feel like you know a little bit more about that than I do, because like for my brother, it was just like.
Yeah.
He didn't have much. He just had his apartment.
So it was very tricky when it came to the case of my sister and my brother-in-law, because they were each other's next of kin.
Right.
So this was a very, I don't want to say it was a messy situation, because our families are so respectful and grieved so much together. Sure. And there's just so much love in that house. And it was all like, who can handle what? Let's try and figure everything out. I mean, it really, his family is just amazing. And the thing is, like, they both have different executors, right?
Yeah.
Because he has an eldest daughter from a previous marriage, so she became the executor of his estate, and then my parents would become the executor of my daughter's estate, of my daughter. I always call her my daughter because she's like my daughter.
I love that.
But, one parent has to give up the rights to be an executor. If I pass and I have two living parents, one of them has to name the other one the executor and say that they're not going to fight. So that could also be a point of contention, because, you have to think about your parents' situation. There's not a chance in hell that I would have my father handle my estate.
No.
It's going to be my mom.
Of course.
But my parents are still married. They're still together. You know what I mean? But you have to say these things. So, basically, what to consider when you're choosing an executor. You need to pick somebody who, you want to look for trustworthiness, you want to look for organizational skills, and you want to look for emotional fortitude.
Ooh.
Okay? Like, you have to really discuss the importance of, why you're choosing this person.
Right.
And ensure that they're willing to take on the responsibility.
Right.
Because...
Right.
Maybe this person doesn't want to take on their responsibility. Maybe they say, you know what, I think your aunt would be great.
Right.
With this kind of stuff.
Correct.
Or something like that. So those are a couple things to consider. And, essentially the role of, an executor of the estate is they're responsible for managing Everything. Your debts.
Yes.
Gathering assets, distributing property, filing taxes. Just because you die doesn't mean you don't pay taxes.
Well, actually, so with my dad, because he was with the assisted living and they took his Social Security. Sure, he had his pension. They told me I couldn't do his taxes. So that's what I found kind of indifferent, which I wish I had a lawyer to do.
Right.
But even so, like, they asked me, how about for the bank account? Tell me about, like, when you had to go for your sister's bank account. For my dad, like, I didn't even bother with my brothers. I'm sure it's probably closed. It probably had nothing in there. But, and I'm not saying that in any other disrespectful way. I think, like, he was probably waiting on a check.
Yeah.
Just, like, kind of, keeping his money flowing. As for my dad, I had full access to his account still, thankfully. And they were like, well, there's still money there. I go, yeah, there's still money there because the place where he was, they need to take out the money. But I was basically doing their jobs for them.
Right.
It was just so awful. But anyway, with all that being said, I was like, how am I supposed to? They were like, no, you need to go and get an attorney. I said, nobody's getting an attorney. And the guy was like, well, I know you, so I'll talk to you soon. And kind of like brushed me off. And I was like, ooh, I picked it up. No doubt. Let me take care of this money situation. Then I'll come back and close the account.
Yeah.
Because
they'll take it. Sometimes my mom's colleague had, they made her wait 6 months. Like, she came in to, like, close the account, and they were like, no, I think they hold the money for, like, 6 months to see if things need to be paid out.
Yes.
It's very tricky. I mean, listen.
It's a lot.
You need to prepare for the future.
Sure.
At the end of the day.
That's it.
You want to make it lighter for the people who are going to... The people have to cope emotionally with your loss, and then with all of the financial responsibilities.
Absolutely.
You don't want somebody thinking about how to handle your taxes.
No.
When you're trying,
nobody has time for that.
I would encourage you to update your own will, consider choosing an executor.
Yeah.
And definitely, like, understand the peace of mind that comes from knowing that your legal affairs are in order.
Right.
And, like, definitely acknowledge, while it's, like, difficult to plan for death, it's an act of love to those that you left behind.
Right. And I also think that just having all that will and having everything kind of put into place, like you want, like, them to grieve you. You want them, like, that's the only thing that they have to work. Like, kind of what I did for my mom. I had said that in a previous episode. Like, I just took care of everything. But in actuality, truth be told, my husband was talking to Mario, but I'm standing right here, and he's kind of like, and I'm like, yeah, we're good. And because I didn't know if I was able to even listen to that.
Right.
And Mario's like, okay, like, how about this? And I was just like, and, my husband was like, do you agree? I go, yeah, we're good. And then he was like, oh, do you want, clothes for him? I was like, no. I'll pick out his clothes. Like, I'll have everything ready for him. He had this infamous blue suit that he always wore, like, to his business meetings. And he was really proud of that suit. So that's kind of what we cremated him in.
Right.
But still, like, what? Like, in their right mind, like, why would a parent want to even do with that, deal with any of that? So I feel like having a will, knowing what you want, have you thought about that yet?
I have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that could be for a different episode. Yeah. I definitely know what I want too.
Yeah. And it's like, we would have never planned this out this way.
No.
Yeah.
Just know mine is going to be a party. Yeah.
There's a beach involved in mine. So
I love that. So I think that, just the legality, just talk to an attorney. Again, LegalZoom.
Also, your HR department.
Yes.
Like, I can email the HR administrator and say, hey, listen, what do I sign up for? When is open enrollment? Right. Because, like, now I reached out. I said, hey, what am I working with? Something happens to me. Right. How could I add on? Okay, in November, December is open enrollment. You can change all of your life insurance policies.
Well, that's what I was just about to bring up, life insurance. Like, life insurance is so important because, again, that will cover, funerals and burials, and we'll get to that in another episode.
And your job will typically cover, like 1 year of your salary or a portion of your salary, and then you can pay small premiums to get a little bit more.
Yes, And that's amazing. But that's the thing.
Even asking how it works. How does this work? Could you let me know how this works so that I can make it easier?
Right. And that's the thing. Like, I just feel like it's just so difficult for people to do that because, especially parents. And I feel like generations and up, right? Like our generation, like we're getting there, right? Unfortunately, we're getting there in age. Sorry. I don't know about you. I think I'm still, 21 and fabulous. Even though Forever Young is, what is it? Forever 21 is closing down. So it's going to be 22 now.
Right.
So, with all that being said, I think that our parents or like our grandparents are like, no way. No. You figure it out when I go. And it's like, why do you want to leave that burden on somebody? Why would you? Can you just tell me your wishes? Right. What would you like? Do you want to be cremated?
Well,
do you
I asked my grandmother where her important papers are.
No,
and
under the mattress.
No, they're in the love seat in the living room. So we call it Nima's couch filing system.
I can't.
Like she keeps all her important papers.
I love that.
In the love seat of her couch. I'm like, there's got to be a better system. Like, we need to go through all this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. But no, my mom used to keep it underneath the mattress, like the birth certificates and everything.
Yeah.
Shot records,
whatever. You come in looking for your passport, and they go into their...
They're like, what?
Where's my passport?
Yeah. So it's just like, I just found it, like, really interesting to, like, really like kind of go through this experience with like the will, when you were telling me about the estate and all that. I just thought it was, it's just a very important topic, and we really wanted to share informational stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Sure, we joke around, we're keeping it very light, but in the same token, I also want you guys to go away with information too, like, or what the next steps are. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit us up.
Yeah, we'll be happy to connect you with people who we've met along the way.
Yeah.
And just kind of understanding the process. I remember when Natalie passed, we connected, and I was like, oh, I'm at the funeral home, and I'm doing this, and now we're doing that. And she's like, I remember that. And, make sure you ask for this and things like that. And, we're not experts, but at least two people that have kind of been through this.
Right.
And we can kind of tell you things to look out for and things like that. And and what you would need, because it is such a blur. Yeah. And when you are dealing with grief and you have to pick out clothes.
Oh, the worst.
The worst. It's like the worst, and all these sorts of things. And then you have to make sure that their bank accounts are okay.
You think we're thinking about that? I don't.
Yeah.
But there's some, and there's another, I know we keep throwing out like little jabs of like different episodes. Yes. But little teasers. But I feel like, in one of the episodes we do kind of get into like, did we know about their debts and like, did they have this mysterious money, and then families fighting over the money? Like, there's just so much, and it's just so complex. And I think that's the only word I can use to describe such information like this. Right. It's just complex, and every situation is different. But I would suggest you be prepared and before the situations happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a crazy topic today. This is a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm having like flashbacks.
Yeah, I can see you. You're like, girl,
I'm like,
I can't.
I'm so glad that part is over. And it's not, some of it isn't really over. Me and my mom are still sending some faxes here and there.
Sure, and you will probably for the rest of the year, but.
Right, probably for the rest of the year. Yeah, it is just, jeez. Yeah. It is just so much. So as much as you can get in order.
Yeah.
Or help your parents.
Right.
Hey, did you have this figured out? Hey, what do you
want?
Yeah.
What do you want?
As much as you don't want to think about people in your life passing, ask them what their wishes are, because you definitely want to. It's an act of love. I want to make sure that when you're not here, things are handled in the way that you want to be handled.
Correct.
Because my mother-in-law said, you're going to cremate me. That's all I know. You're not going to have any of these people come stare at me. And she gave me a whole thing. And so, she was so... I knew exactly how to plan for her when it happened.
Yeah. See? Imagine that. P.S. I wore gold for Nat.
Oh, we all got our extra gold on.
Thank you guys so much for watching episode 8. Holy moly.
Oh my God. We're getting up there.
We're getting up there.
So exciting. So, if you haven't watched 1 through 7, do nothing else tonight. But watch 1 through 7.
Get to it and like and subscribe.
And share.
And that's it. Have a great time.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.